So tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa to everyone. My name is Michael Shadbolt. That's me there and here. So I just want to make sure before we get too much further, you can all hear me. Give me a thumbs up or something if you can. Great. Okay, good to know. Nothing worse than spending about 20 minutes talking before someone finally pipes up in chat to say they can't hear you. You've muted yourself. I'm sure we've had that experience with lockdown teaching over the last little while. But yes, I'm here and here. Bit weird. This, by the way, in case you're wondering, this is my profile picture that Anna asked me to send in for, for the program for today. I'm always surprised at how few people actually send in a profile picture when they're asked for a profile picture. Everyone seems to do the portrait, but anyway, they asked for a profile picture, and there it is. So you can see the gorgeousness of my giant nose. So I'll be for this presentation, I'll be down here in this corner. We'll get rid of this guy in a second. Oh, no, that one, we'll get rid of that one in a second when we move on. But I'll be sitting down here and I'll speak to what's happening on the screen. You don't need two of me the whole time. The saying, never meet your heroes. So we'll get rid of him. So just a little bit about me. I have been teaching mathematics and statistics for 15 years at the end of this year. I'm currently teaching at Bethlehem College in Tauranga. And prior to that, I was at Ōtūmotai College in Tauranga as well. So a big hello to my colleagues and ex-colleagues. Thank you for being such a big inspiration to me. And I hope you enjoy this as well. Some of you watching might know me from various workshops at Stats Days over the last few years. I just want to say I really do appreciate your attendance and encouragement at those as well. I've certainly enjoyed them, which is why it's quite embarrassing, but I do have a confession to make first up before we go too much further today. I'm not a qualified mathematician or statistician. It's not me. What I do have, I have a bachelor's degree in software engineering. I have a graduate diploma in teaching. I have a diploma in commercial broadcasting, 6 months in Porirua for that one. And I have a Girl Guide Technofunk badge, one of my greatest achievements that I earned in 2005 as a 28-year-old man. So very few people can make that claim to fame. And if we're looking at a hit list of my greatest achievements, we can't go past second place at Papamoa Primary School for uncooked biscuits back in 1983. That was at the Papamoa Primary School Lamb and Calf Cooking and Flour Arranging Day when I was 7 years old. So that's on my CV, ready to go. I also, still a little bit better, I just missed out on third place for sand sculpture. No, it was a sand saucer flower arrangement as well. Still a little bitter about that. But the point I'm trying to make is I may well be the only person to have ever delivered a keynote at the Stats Day who is not either a doctor or working towards being a doctor. Not that that's necessarily off the radar. There's some good reasons for doing a PhD. But if ever there was a year, right? If ever there was a year for you to ignore the wise advice of qualified doctors and instead listen to the deranged ramblings of some random guy off the internet, 2021 is that year, right? So here I am representing 2021, some guy unqualified to give you lots of advice. So I hope it goes down okay. Actually, on a related note, I'm sure you've had the same experience as me of turning up to parent-teacher interviews. Particularly, it happens for year 11s, right? When you turn up to your year 11 parent-teacher interviews, and the parent sits down and they admit to you after a deep breath that they finally reached the point where they feel like they can't help their son or daughter with their math anymore. It's gotten too hard, it's beyond them, and they can't help with their homework. It seems to be that year 11 is the sweet spot for that sort of tipping point for parents. Of course, doesn't stop the same parents jumping onto the Herald comments section and giving their reckons on epidemiology and climate science. But that's okay. We'll move on. So I've titled this this keynote last period relief because it is Friday afternoon, and they've timetabled me on for math last period. So it's always fun, but we might as well have some fun along the way. I did have a look at the definition of relief. This is from the Cambridge English Dictionary. It says relief, a feeling of happiness that something unpleasant has not happened or has ended, or the alternative translation, of course, or definition for in teaching, a feeling of unhappiness, relief, that something unpleasant is about to happen in the class you're filling in for. So I hope it's the former and not the latter this afternoon for you. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's have a bit of fun. Here we go. I'm going to do a few of these throughout the session today. This is something I like to do with my senior students, and I call it a song graph. Okay, and I've stolen all these from the internet, and let's do one as a demonstration. What I've got is it's either a graph or it's a diagram, and it's trying to illustrate a song, hopefully a well-known song. So here's one just by way of introduction. Here we go. This one here. Okay, we've got a graph, songs about rainbows, songs about hail. So the song we're trying to do here is, and feel free to pop it in the chat if you think you know what it is. What's the song this graph is trying to tell us about? Okay, a little bit of a tricky one to start with. This is that classic Muppets song, Rainbow Connection. Yes, Stefan got in there first. No, not Somewhere Under the Rainbow, but good try. Thanks for trying. But this is the Kermit the Frog song with the banjo and the swamp. Why are there so many songs about rainbows, Rainbow Connection? Okay, so you've got the hang of it now. Let's, well, there are very few about hail. I'm going to have to let you Google that one yourself to work that out. But here we go, for realsy this time. Why don't you see if this person put in the chat the name of this song? Here we go. First person, oh, close. Yes, we'll give it to Stephen, yes. Got a few people there. The first cut is the deepest, right? Time series graph, cut depth, definitely the first cut is the deepest. Written by Cat Stevens before also being covered by a multitude of other artists, Rod Stewart and so on. Okay, so well done. I would give you a prize, but we're a virtual, so just grab something out of your own cupboard and you'll be fine. Let's try it. Here we go, song graph number 2. What is this song? Any suggestions? Oh, Ruth jumped in there. Very fast typing from Ruth. We've got Matt coming up as well, and Anne. You can't always get what you want. That's right. Rolling Stones, a good Venn diagram. You can't always get what you want, but if you try, sometimes you get what you need. Okay, so apologies that those were both from the 1960s. I am pitching it at the average age of a New Zealand math teacher, so I was hoping to start off fairly strong there, but we've got some more from other decades coming up later on as well. Okay, our first activity, here we go. The first kind of main thing we're going to do today. The theme of the day today was exploring worlds with data. So I thought I'd start off with a virtual world and answer that question. When you slay the dragon, who gets the loot? Okay, so there's lots of sort of games, online multiplayer games, where our students are playing them, some of our teachers are playing them, hopefully not at work, and they have a situation where they have randomized reward or loot systems where the people are having to actually compete against each other for the loot that drops when they beat the dragon. Things happen. So let's have a look at an example. So we defeat the dragon, and treasure chest drops. We open the treasure chest, and lo and behold, oh, there it is, the thing we've all been waiting for. It's the 2 ring. Okay, vastly superior, twice as good as the 1 ring, right? At least, right? So so then what happens, of course, is in some of these systems, some of these games, they've got a system for handling loot where everyone who's interested in the item rolls a random number between 1 and 100. and whoever gets the largest number wins, right, out of that thing. So here we go. We've got an example here. Ada rolls 37, Bob rolls 58, CC rolls 41, and D rolls 74. It's looking good. And Eve rolls 12. And so the highest number from 1 to 100 out of those 5 rolls, the person who rolled the highest was D. So D wins the ring, right? You get the idea? So, a fairly useful system. Everyone gets to see, everyone gets to think, oh, maybe it'll be me. Then they spot someone else with a higher roll. They're like, oh, darn it, I'm not going to win this one. So here's a probability question for us that we can answer. What is the average winning roll? What is the average winning roll? So D here, she won with 74, but is that high? Is that low? What's the average winning roll? What would you be fairly confident that you have won the roll with and get it? So like everything, okay, EPP DAC, we're going to start with a bit of exploration. Let's just start with a guess. So what do you think? What do you think is the average winning roll? Feel free to pop it into the chat. Let's see if you can hit the nail on the head first time. What sort of number do we think? We've got 60, 66, maybe. What's the average winning roll? So in this scenario, we're going to have 5 people rolling for the loot from 1 to 100. So in these parameters, 80, 81, 70, 75, these are all great first guesses. And to help us try and figure out approximately where the answer is, we could ask questions like, well, what is the average roll for a single person between 1 and 100? So average roll between 1 and 100 for an individual is going to be 50.5, right? That's our sort of halfway number. Now, if the system doesn't let you roll a decimal, then it'll be 50 or 51, depending on how it deals with it. So 50.5. So if for an individual, the average roll is 50.5, then we'll expect that the average for 5 people is going to be higher than that, right? The average winning roll for 5 people is going to be higher. In fact, the more people in the party, the higher we're going to have that number in order to find the winning roll. So the question itself, what is the average winning roll, is fairly simple, but the theoretical probability answer is not necessarily easy for our secondary school students to be able to calculate or to be able to work out, right? The question is simple, but the answer is not clear. So for the purposes of simplifying the problem that we've got here, we're going to say that if there is a tie amongst the 5 rolls, a tie for the score, then we'll have the tied winners do like a roll off to see which of them wins. But we'll just consider that their initial roll is the winning score that they have. Okay. So in a minute, what I'll get you to do is some of you might be with other people in your little bubble right now, and you can make up a little adventuring party. If there's not 5 of you where you are, then you can invent some imaginary members of your party and just do extra rolling for them. But we're going to roll some numbers between 1 and 100. Now, of course, if we're going to roll numbers between 1 and 100, how are we going to do it? Here's a couple of options. Okay, one option, of course, is get the old trusty calculator and spend about 10 minutes teaching your students how to find a random number on it, navigating their way through all the menus. Okay, so pretty tricky. Perhaps better option if you go to random.org on a web browser. It's got all sorts of random tools on there, and up in the top corner of random.org on the front page, it has a random number generator that defaults to 1 to 100. So you just click the button and it'll give you a number there. Or if that's even too much hard work, just type into Google random number 1 to 100. Okay, and Google in its search engine has a whole lot of math functions, including a random number generator that you can alter the parameters for. So random.org, or just Google random number 1 to 100. And I want you to do 5 rolls for your party, and or ask Siri. Yeah, Siri, give me a random number from 1 to 100. If you trust Siri, that is. I don't always trust Siri. And I want you to work out for 5 rolls what is the winning roll from the 5, and then do it a couple of times and just post what your winning number out of 5 is into the chat, and we'll see if we can kind of get a sense for where this number is kind of going. So I'm just going to give you 2 minutes. So roll 5 numbers, take the highest number, chuck it in the chat, and if you've got time, do it again, and we'll just kind of watch the chat and we'll get an idea of what kind of numbers we have. So I'll give you just a little bit of time to do that. However you'd like to do the random numbers, random.org, 1 to 100. So I've got 99 there, that's a high roll. 98, 91, 86, 62. Yeah, wow, winning on a 62, highest roll out of 5. Tied for 89. Oh, we've got 100. Someone's got 100, of course, that's going to happen. An unbeatable roll there. 54, yeah, 42, that's quite a low winning roll out of 5. When I saw a 9, that seems oddly low. Maybe it was a bit of a mistype, but we'll see. So we've got lots of numbers in the 70s, lots of numbers in the 80s, and lots of numbers in the 90s. Okay, so we'll just kind of draw that to a close there. Thanks for playing the little game. So with our students, you know, we could do this. We could get them into groups of 5. We could get them to do 1 to 100 and see out of the 5 of them who got the highest number. That's the winning roll out of their group. And of course, we could gather up this data for the class. We could get them to do it multiple times, and we'd start getting a sense of where the answer is going to be. And of course, we can do this on a larger scale if we have a spreadsheet. So here's a little spreadsheet I made. Here's our 5 adventurers, and we've picked the highest number out of each time. So here we've got an 84, 100, 73, 61, 99, and so on. And of course, we can do lots and lots of rolls on a spreadsheet. So here's my summary of 10,000 rows in the spreadsheet. And if you have a look here, you can see that for each of the 5 players at the top, I've found the average roll that they rolled out of 10,000 times. And for each of them, it's getting pretty close to that 50.5 individual average that we would expect. And then we've taken the highest roll for each lot of 5 and averaged that out, and we come up with our number 84. Okay, so by process of repeated use of the model, we've come up with what we think will be the number. And I've, of course, done this multiple times, hit the refresh button, and it sort of sometimes varies up to 85, but usually sits around about 84. So we're expecting that the average winning roll for 5 people in one of these games is 84. If you get 84, you're on average likely to win. Not always, of course, because we can see here, I've counted up the number of 100s out of 10,000, and there were 477 times where you had to roll 100 in order to actually win the roll. So that works out to be about 5% of the time, or 1 in 20 times. If you're not rolling 100, you're not winning the loot. Okay. Now, just actually while I was searching for a random number generator on Google, when I typed some things into Google, it came up with a search suggestion, and this was the search suggestion, and I had to stop for a second and have a think about what this was trying to say. People also Google, what is the most random number between 1 and 100? What's the most random number between 1 and 100? And someone said, obviously 37. Well, you're absolutely right, because this is not actually what people are asking. People are not actually asking what's the most random number between 100. What they're actually saying is, when you ask people to give a random number between 1 and 100, what is the most common response? Okay, what do people who are trying to be random say when you ask for a number between 1 and 100? What is the most commonly chosen number? And it is 37. That's the most common answer that people give between 1 and 100. We're not very good in our heads at being random. People tend to lean towards particular numbers. We're not very good at this. The most common answer is 37, and one of the other most common answers is 73. You see, it's something about the 3's and the sevens that people kind of stick to. They feel like those numbers are the randomest ones that they could come up with. If you ask people for a random number between 1 and 20, the most common answer is 17. There's that 7 again. And if you ask people between 1 and 10, the most common answer is 7, followed by 3. Okay, so here's a little hint for those of you who haven't quite got your head around probability yet and are still playing Lotto. If you are playing the Powerball and you're choosing what Powerball number to go with, stay away from 3 and 7 because they'll be picked more often by people who are manually picking than the other Powerball numbers. Okay, so stay away from those, not because you're more or less likely to win the Powerball, but you're less likely to share the Powerball with other people if you don't pick 3 or 7. I suggest 1 or 10 be the least picked of the numbers if you randomly ask between 1 and 10. So I just thought that was an interesting aside as to what the most common random numbers are. Okay, here we go. Let's do another song graph. Prepare yourselves. This one was still stuck in the 1960s, so still pitching it at most of us. Here we go. First person with an answer. What is this graph song? Got the Venn diagram this time. How fast are we on the old keyboard? Yeah, I think Matthew, first one into the list, although, wow, they're coming in. Yes, some people went with the short version. The long version, He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother, correct. Best known from the 1969 version by the Hollies. It wasn't actually the original version, but theirs was the first one to make it popular. He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother. Well done, well done. Okay, one more, also from the 60s. Here we go. I'll get out of the way for this one. Different diagram today. Little flow chart happening here. And yeah, I think we've got it. Is it Carla? I Want to Hold Your Hand. Okay, it's pretty much the entire song from the Beatles in flowchart form. Quite an interesting one to follow along with. The entire lyrics are there, but it goes in these sort of loops of lyrics. Yeah, so the Beatles, 1963, I Want to Hold Your Hand. Okay. Here's a little game we can just play with our neighbor if we're in with a little bubble. Time for a little game about cereal. So what I'm going to do is I want you to have a little think about the first breakfast cereal that pops into your mind, and I'm going to count down. I'll go 3, 2, 1, go, and on go, I want you to turn to a person in the room or your cat or dog if you're at home, okay. And I want you to say the name of the breakfast cereal, the first breakfast cereal that pops into your mind. You ready? Here we go. Turn to someone. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay. Okay. So I'm hearing from the room I'm in. I'm hearing some Rice Krispies or Rice Bubbles come up. Little hands up. So of the cereal that first pops into your head, how many of you had this? Hang on. How had one of these 3? Here we go. Wheat Bix, Corn Flakes, Rice Bubbles. Okay, Wheat Bix, Corn Flakes, Rice Bubbles. I call these cereals the unholy trio of snore-worthy breakfasts. Okay, these are by far and away the axis of boring when it comes to cereals. Yeah, the most boring cereals on the planet. Shades of yellow or brown, and that's about it. They often crunch, maybe substance, but snore-worthy. And so the reason I bring this up, as in, well, actually, before we do, let's play a little game that sort of tags onto this one. So if you've got someone in your room with you that you can play this game with, or more than one person, we're going to play a game of one-upping. Okay. So starting with Rice Bubbles, which has to be the most boring of them all. It doesn't even have color, for goodness sake. Starting with Rice Bubbles, I want you to kind of go around your room and take turns naming a cereal that is more interesting than the one that your neighbor just said. Okay, so one person can start with Rice Bubbles, and then you go around the room and just like one up each other. It's got to be more interesting than the previous cereal. So why don't you try that Or if you're alone, you can play this game alone as well and just try one-upping yourself on interesting cereal. So I'm just going to play with the people in this room. I'll be back in 1 minute. Okay, so you can start off. Okay, okay. And once you've got to what you think might be the epitome of interesting cereals, I want you to post it in the chat. What's the winning cereal that's the most interesting one that anyone can come up with in your group? Yeah. The little, okay, yeah. Is anything more interesting than Weet-Bix fruit bites? We're passing. Anyone else? Any advance on Weet-Bix fruit bites? We got to Weet-Bix fruit bites here, which I'm not sure if that's gonna count. Oh, we got what have we got? Chocolate chips, crunchy nut cornflakes. Again, it's still a kind of Weet-Bix. It's a kind of cornflakes. Oh, chocolate frosted sugar bombs. That sounds interesting. Sounds dangerous. For that, Belgian chocolate crispies, homemade caramel and banana granola. That sounds like a winner. Lucky Charms, a few American imports here. I remember the first time I tried some Captain Crunch, I was convinced that someone was having a laugh because it just felt like I was eating candy, basically in a bowl with milk poured all over the top of it. But bacon and eggs, yes, not exactly a cereal, but I guess if it's on a layer of something, we might put it here. Okay, so yeah, bacon pancakes. If we could take bacon pancakes and just turn them into a cereal, infuse the flavor in cornflakes or something. So what has this got to do with stats? Very little, actually. But what it is really is an exercise, not so much for your class, although you can turn anything into a class exercise, but this is an exercise for you as teachers. You see, you're constantly having to make contextual examples up for things like normal distributions. Okay, you've got a lesson and you're about to do a normal distribution and you're like, oh goodness. And so the temptation will be there, right? For you to run with the first thing that pops into your head. Okay, you're up at the board and they're like, okay, so here we go. Bags of cornflakes are normally distributed with a mean of, and before you can even finish drawing the normal curve, half your class is already asleep and snoring because you've chosen cornflakes, right, to be your product of choice. That is your hook for today. Hey everyone, we're talking about not just cornflakes, but bags of cornflakes. Super exciting and interesting, right? So what my plea to you is try and make your world more interesting than Weet-Bix, more interesting than cornflakes and rice bubbles. If you are going to use cereal, which is fine, if you are going to use cereal, at least make it the world's most interesting cereal. Okay, so don't be tempted to go with that first thought that pops into your head, that Weet-Bix, that cornflakes, that rice bubbles. Try and just give it a few more seconds and come up with something a little bit more exciting. And of course, the world's most interesting cereal, as agreed upon by the internet, is this one here, Kellogg's Cream Crunch. Okay, this by far and away tops the charts by the cerealologists out there in terms of historical cereals that have been very exciting. So let me paint the picture here. The year is 1965. The space race between the US and the USSR is producing some novel new technologies, and one of them is the freeze drying of things, including the ability to freeze dry ice cream. And the Whirlpool Corporation that came up with this technology was hoping that NASA would be able to send up freeze-dried ice cream with the astronauts. It doesn't sound like it ever actually happened. But Kellogg's has this great idea to leverage this newfound freeze-dried technology, particularly the freeze-dried ice cream, and they created this brand new cereal, Kellogg's Cream Crunch, right? Sounds delicious. Here's another little display from the time, okay? Chunks of real ice cream freeze-dried in a nutritious cereal. It comes in vanilla, strawberry, and orange with a nutritious multigrain cereal base. Sounds wonderful. And it was off the shelves within a year for the reasons that you're all realizing right now, is that this is mid-60s America, and the marketing geniuses at Kellogg's have made a cereal with an unfortunate acronym. It did not last long, shall we say. Okay, time for another song graph. Here we go. Let's millennials, now's your time. Here we go. Some 1990s song graphs. Let's give it a go. Okay, here we go. First song graph. What is the name of this song? Emma's got it, I think. Emma was the first. Helen, not far behind. Very good. Helen, I must admit, did have better punctuation than Emma, but well done. Okay, so everything I do it for you. The theme song of every math teacher, I'll do them there. And from their students. So Brian Adams, 1991 Venn diagram. Okay, one more, also from the 1990s. Let's kind of go. Okay, very good. Yeah, the song is, those are some lyrics from it. Yeah, the song itself is just called I'm Too Sexy by the band Right Said Fred, 1992. Okay, I'm Too Sexy, and these are all different things that the song mentions, including for my cat. I'm too sexy for my cat. I don't know how that's possible, but there it is. Okay, so thank you. Okay, let's move on. Next activity. Here we go. So look, it's that time of year, right? Christmas is coming up. We've got students leaving us, and they want to show their love and appreciation by giving us the gift of diabetes for the summer season, boxes of chocolates and what have you. And the old Cadbury's favorites are up there on the list. So that and the Belgian seashell chocolates as well seem to be the main ones. But the old Cadbury favorites coming your way. So let's just, I'm just going to get a volunteer up here. Here we go. Here's a volunteer. I've got myself a box of favorites right here. We go. It's got the classic, this is the classic box, all the classic flavorings. I'll just open it up here. There we go. And I'll get a handy dandy volunteer, Felicia, here, just to reach in. Oh, let's see if here we go. Here she is. Not sure if it's going to show her up. And oh, here's the hand. The technology is failing us, but she is picking out and we'll hold that up. What do we got? Cherry ripe. Okay, well let's put that over there. What about pick another one, because not everyone likes cherry ripes. What do we got coming out of the favorites box today? Cherry ripe. Okay, one more, because they can't be cherry ripes coming out of the favorite box. Cherry ripe. Okay, so what we've, thank you, Felicia, appreciate that. What we've discovered, of course, is that the probability of getting a cherry ripe from a favorites box is 100%. Okay, that seems to be what that. Someone's saying rigged. I dare you to play this at home. The same thing will happen to you, right? So there are 11 different kinds of chocolates in a favorites box, and the odds of getting a cherry ripe are 100%. So there are two kinds of people in the world, and I think I saw someone in the chat there. There are people who never pick the cherry ripes, and there's people like me and some people in the chat who actually like the cherry ripes and really appreciate the fact they get left in the bottom of the box, and we'll clean them up. You can have my Turkish delights though; those things can just stay off my plate. I'm a cherry ripe kind of guy. Now there is actually an Easter egg version of the favorites box put out by Cadbury, and it's a little different from the box. In the Easter egg version, you've got the hollow egg, and inside the hollow egg there's a little plastic bag, and inside it's got some of these little favorites bars in it. And in the Easter egg version, there are 8 little mini bars, and they're randomly chosen from 5 selected favorites flavors. One of those is cherry ripe. So 8 bars from 5 flavors. And a couple of years ago, there was a bit of a fuss both in the UK and here in New Zealand when people busted open their Easter egg, their Cadbury favorites Easter egg, only to find that they were mostly filled with cherry ripes. In fact, someone posted to Cadbury's Facebook page. Here we go. There's their packet right there, still unopened. and it had 7 cherry ripes and 1 other chocolate. Okay, and so there was an article on this. I can't remember if it was the Herald or stuff. Someone asked a statistician, "What are the odds of this happening?" And the statistician put the odds at around about 1 in 10,000. But this is a great little hook for your students. Level 3 binomial distributions, right, would be a good modeling exercise for this one. So here's what I do, right, is this after binomial, is this a binomial situation? Why is this a binomial situation? We've got our fixed number of trials, we've got our 2 possible outcomes, we've got our fixed probability of success, assuming that each of the 5 flavors is equally likely to end up in the egg. Are the trials independent of each other? Let's make the assumption that they are randomly selected. And we've got our binomial distribution. Okay, so if you work out the probability of getting 7 cherry ripes out of 8, we come up with this hideous value here on our calculator. P equals 8.192 E negative 0.5. And chances are that one of a couple of things is going to happen at this point, but a good chunk of your class is likely to freak out because they were not paying attention back in year 10 when their math teacher taught them standard form. Okay, they have no idea what this number is. And even if you turn it into the classic standard form kind of one with the times 10, they're still like, I have no idea what that is. So we teach them, okay, let's convert it into ordinary form. Here it is down the bottom here, 0.00008192. It's a tiny number. It's a small number, but here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. There are small numbers, there are tiny numbers, and there are minuscule numbers. And our students rarely see a number that small. And as far as they're concerned, if it's anything less than 0.03, it's a tiny number that will probably never happen. Because we've taught them, the probability scale. Oh, if it's under 0.5, it's unlikely to happen, and so on and so forth, right? By the time you get down to 0.03, 0.01, as far as they're concerned, this thing's never going to occur, and this number is tiny, tiny, tiny. But there are lots of Easter eggs, right? So what are the odds? How likely is this to happen? What is this probability number? How likely is it actually going to happen? So this is where it's a great opportunity. You haven't just taught them standard form, how to convert to ordinary numbers. It's also a great opportunity to remind them of a reciprocal, okay? And a reciprocal is a powerful tool for taking these decimal numbers and actually flipping it over to figure out this is 1 in what, okay? So the reciprocal of this number, 12,207. In other words, the odds of getting one of these Easter eggs with 7 cherry ripes in it is 1 in 12,207. And when you put it that way, 1 in 12,207 doesn't seem quite so small. It doesn't seem as small as 0.00008. Because when you start asking yourself the question, well, how many of these Easter eggs are produced? I could see in my supermarket at any one point, there's like a display that's got like 60 of them. There's probably another 600 out the back, maybe more. That's just my supermarket. How many supermarkets are in my town? How many towns are in New Zealand? There's probably 120,000 of these actually getting produced, right? And so there's going to be people dotted up and down the country who are getting 7 cherry ripes or 7 Moro bars or 7 of whatever in their packet. It's going to happen. It's going to happen to a lot of people. And when you've got the whole population able to put things on Cadbury's Facebook page, it's going to happen, right? When you've got a large population, these things actually will occur. Yeah, 1 in a million is guaranteed to happen. If it's an action movie, even more so. Okay, good little exercise for your students, particularly at level 3. You can dumb it down for the level 2 probability as well. Do it using trees. We're only talking 8 things. I suppose it's quite a large tree, but we're at least getting into it. Okay, more song graphs. 1990s. Here we go. Let's see if you can get this one here from 1990s. What is the song that this graph is trying to tell us? Oh, not on the first one. Yes, Matthew. Yes, no, Matthew, you had it right the first time. This is, yep, very good. Creep by Radiohead. Okay, from 1992. 1992, Creep by Radiohead. Let's do one more, also from the 1990s. I think fairly confident that the vast majority of people will get this one. Here we go. Yeah, here it is. Yeah, I'm a Barbie girl in a Barbie world wrapped in plastic. It's fantastic. Aqua, Barbie Girl, 1997, in case you're trying to place that in your life. I'm sure you'll have fun on Spotify on the way home. Okay, let's do, we've got time, I think, for just one or two more. Let's have a little chat. Yes, all those who, thank you for those who admit that they actually knew what that song was. It'll be stuck in your head now. We know that life has changed a little bit in the last year and a half, 2 years. And one of the functions of normal life, normal part of life these days, of course, is the old scanning in with COVID app. Yeah. It seems to be now part of the old daily routine. And the thing is that actually all this kind of stuff provides some really interesting data for us to be able to look at, which is super relevant to the kids as part of their daily life. And here is some of the data from the Ministry of Health around daily QR code scans. This is updated daily. It's on the daily briefing. They keep the data there. And we can see over time what's been going on with the scan rates, right? So this would be a great little hook, little introduction to time series. The graph is probably a little hard to read, but it starts down the far end, June 2020, and it actually goes as far as November this year. So it's just a couple of weeks old, maybe even just a week old data here. So quite up to date. And there's lots of questions we can ask our students about what's going on here. Right? We don't even really need to explain much. Just let them kind of say, what am I seeing here? For instance, we see this little regular pattern, this kind of wiggle going on, right? That little wiggle's happening. What is the wiggle? Like, what is going on there? Why do we see that regular kind of wiggly, 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 wiggly? Regardless of whether it's going up and down, we've got the regular kind of seasonal wiggle, right? So just to help you along here, what's happening is the higher parts of the wiggle are weekdays, and then it drops off slightly on weekends, weekdays, weekends, weekdays, weekends. Right? That's what's going on there. And then, like, next question, why is there that really flat bit at the beginning? The first couple of months are just kind of flat, a little bit of activity, but very little. What's going on there? Well, that's when they're developing the app. It's the beta users. That's very few people who are who have access to this while they're actually running the software. What about the sudden jumps? Why the sudden jump here near the beginning? Why the sudden jump here? And so on. If people say, well, that's when we had community cases, that's when we had lockdowns, that's when we had things happening, and people were like, oh, I better start scanning again. Then the follow-up question is always, well, how do you know? How do you know that those dates are those dates? And this on and actually research and find out, is that the time at which lockdowns occurred or cases happened or so on, okay? And then, of course, what we also see is after the jump, you get these regular kind of just dropping down. People just get a little bit more complacent week after week after week. It just slowly goes down until the next case or the next sort of cluster or the next big outbreak, down and down it goes. Okay? So it's behavioral kind of patterns. Yeah. Oh, can you all see me? I think I was just lost for a second there. I'm back. I'm back. Can you guys see me all right? Okay, great. I've got the thumbs up from the audience in the room. Fantastic. So one other thing here is we put the jumps down to when cases occurred, but that's not always going to be what is causing big shifts in the data. And one thing we always need to be careful of when we're looking at big shifts in the data and why it might be are things like, well, for instance, there's been some talk about having incentives to help to encourage positive behavior in terms of using the COVID app. And it was discussed, posited out there, that we should have some sort of regular lottery, right, for New Zealand. And every scan of the Tracer app creates one entry for a weekly or a monthly $1 million draw. If you really want people to use the COVID Tracer app, every scan puts you in the draw. Incentivize using the scanner. Great idea, right? Great idea. Who doesn't want $1 million so they can buy 1/10 of the house in Auckland, right? Perfect, okay? Great incentive. The problem is, of course, is that it's an example of what we call the perverse incentive. Yes, it's the cobra effect. You might have heard of it for that name. So the perverse incentive, if people are incentivized to scan, just think about your students. If they get an entry into $1 million draw every time they scan into somewhere, what are they going to do? They're going to scan in everywhere, right? They're going to scan in as often as they can. They're going to be walking down the street going click, 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 click in front of every single store that they walk past, even if they don't walk into the store. And what's that going to do for contact tracing? It's going to be a nightmare. One person gets infected and they have 300 different locations of interest for that day. So it sounds good at the initial premise, but actually it creates these behavioral societal effects which are not good. So someone mentioned before, it's the cobra effect. Here's just a nice little sketch that I found on the cobra effect. Now, there's some doubt as to whether this is actually a true story or just some kind of anecdote, but the story goes like this, that during the period of British rule in India, the British government were concerned about the number of venomous cobras that were in Delhi. So they offered a bounty on every dead cobra. You bring your dead cobra along, they pay you some money, they take the dead cobra. Now, initially, this was, so the story goes, a successful strategy, and large numbers of snakes were killed for the reward. But eventually, however, enterprising people started to breed the. So basically, the cobra farmers freed their cobras, and the place was rife with cobras again. A perverse incentive. Yeah. Let me just we'll just move on. Let's do just a couple more song graphs here, just while we're hanging in. Here we go. Some more up-to-date ones for the younger ones amongst you. Let's see who can get this one. What's this one? Here we go, from the 2000s. See if anyone's got this. Yep, that's it. Technically, the title is "We Found Love." It's Rihanna and Calvin Harris, 2011. We Found Love in a Hopeless Place. One more here for you. Here we go from 2006. This one. What's this one? Hopefully you can see. Yep, Amy Winehouse, Rehab. That's it. Amy Winehouse, Rehab. They're trying to make me go to rehab. I said no. Let's just see if we can just finish off one last little thing here, if it's going to be stable. Oh, just yeah, why not? Let's just finish with this one. Some of you, if you're old enough like me, might recall a game show that used to be on New Zealand television, but it was actually from the UK, called Play Your Cards Right. This is an excellent probability game for your students. It ran from 1980 to 2003, and the host there, Bruce Forsyth, nice to see you, nice. And the main game as part of this show involved these cards that were up, and the contestants had to play a game that's sometimes called high or low, where the card is shown and they have to decide whether the next card is higher or lower than the card that shows. And the jokers have been removed. There's 5 cards, so they have to guess the next 4. 2s are low, aces are high, and if you get a wrong guess, then the player loses. If you guess all 4, you win the prize. A really great probability game for your students. So I would suggest that you demonstrate it as a whole class until they get the hang of it, and then they can play using individual sets of cards in small groups or what have you. Now, you're going to be tempted whenever there's a card thing in probability. You're going to be tempted to pull out that pack of cards that you've got, from home, that you use just for playing cards with, and you're going to try and show your class, okay, everyone, and I'll put some cards up, and you'll see how we go with your cards. Or you might have even misplaced those, and so you remember that there was that Christmas cracker that one time, right? And it had that novelty tiny little set of cards in it, and you thought to yourself, oh, I could take that to school. I could use that in my math class. this tiny little set of cards. No, okay. No. General rule of thumb with your classes, go big or go home. So I'm introducing to you. Here we go. Jumbo size of my head playing cards. Just $10 from the warehouse. An excellent investment indeed. Okay, I just walked past them and I went, that is what I need for my math class. Okay, you can get them online as well, just $10, and they're the A4 size, each of these cards. So let's give this a go. I'll just get my volunteer to come up around here, and this is our first card. All right, so the question I have for Peter, he's just going to let me know here, is the next card higher or lower than this one? What do you think, Peter, higher or lower? Lower. Okay, so we're going to go with lower. It's probably a good choice. And oh, what do you know? Lower. Okay, so this one's not too bad either. Next card, is it going to be higher or lower than this? Higher. Okay, we'll go higher. And oh, okay, we're feeling good. We've got a king here, giant king card. Showing up. Here we go, giant king card. What's the next one going to be? Higher or lower? I didn't potentially read this. Lower, yes. The next one's lower. Oh, okay. It's a 7 though. Okay, 7. So which way are we going to go? We're going to go higher, lower. I'm sorry, you didn't. Thank you for playing. But giant playing cards. Giant playing cards from the warehouse. Absolutely awesome for showing your class. I can't wait to do it. I only just got them the other week myself. Okay. I think, given the time, we need to call it there. I, as per usual, had way too many ideas to squeeze into one workshop. If you've ever been to one of my workshops, yeah, 3 and a 7, right? I picked some random number cards to have for this one. If you've been to one of my workshops, you know that I never get through the material. I think I'm going to have to run a workshop of all the bits and pieces that I never actually got around to, a bit of a leftovers kind of one for next year. Thank you so much for sticking it out to the end of Friday. I'll hand back over to Emma, and yeah, ka kite everybody.